Under most circumstances, I wouldn't do a video like this, but for some reason, when I saw this list, I just felt the need to scream. Because whoever wrote this is extremely vague. And by that I mean this list is called 10 of the most powerful semblances in RWBY, but then they announced the number 1 as the most powerful, which makes the implication this is a top 10. However, some of these choices really don't make sense for a most powerful list. Most powerful would imply that it's based on raw output of the semblance. As is said, power isn't everything, or strength isn't everything. They're pretty interchangeable in this case because it's about how much power it can output, not about various other things. But the list doesn't seem to follow that sort of line of thinking. Let's go through and you'll see what I mean. Number 10 is Photographic Memory. This is the Semblance of Velvet Scarlatina. First off, now there are several times in this list where they make the statement, X character is the only person we've seen use this ability, but to my knowledge, the only 2 characters who share a semblance are Glinda Goodwitch and Carmine Esclatus and the Schnee family. It's very, very rare for any character to share a semblance. Some can be similar, like Petal Burst and Super Speed have similar usages, although they are very different according to Harriet. They are very similar when you just look at how they work, so far from our knowledge. This particular semblance, however, leads off the list because of the way we've seen it used in the series. Yeah, once. And she got knocked out while using it. Fun fact, Gameplay Logic, friend of mine and voice actor on this channel, really doesn't like this scene. Anyway, this semblance sets a strange precedent that despite the title of the article being most powerful, this has nothing to do with raw power, but how the person uses their semblance, which would make this most useful or most deadly. The big flaw of putting Photographic Memory on here, though, is that we've only seen this used once, and it wasn't terribly impressive. All she did was mimic some characters and then get laid out. I know some people love overblowing this moment, but keep in mind that Weiss, literally seconds later, achieved far more than Velvet did with a single swing of her summoned sword. Velvet might have crippled a mech, but then she got laid out by one and her laser beam really didn't do shit. Number 9 is Burn. Only number 9. Yang's semblance is easily one of the most powerful in the series if we're talking output. If we're talking usage, then Yang sucks. Beforehand, she could only use it when ranged, and it was hella effective, but not very technical and not very skilled. Now she almost never uses it. The only time recently she's actually put it to use was for a single attack against Adam, and even then, if you actually watch the scene, it's clear that very little of her strength did anything. Because when she punches him, she then fires Ember Celica, which sends him flying. Which means that her punch was so weak that Ember Celica had the power to not only nullify the forward momentum, but also send her arm backwards. No follow through, nothing. It's an awful, awful scene. Also, I've never seen where it's officially stated that Yang's semblance doubles the power of what hits her. RWBY says with each hit she gets stronger and she uses that energy to fight back. Please tell me where that comes from if you know. I'd love to know where they said Yang's semblance doubles the power of what hits her. Number 8. High voltage. Why? No reason is given as to why this is above Burn, but in my eyes it shouldn't be. It's not like Nora's immune to lightning, she clearly is hurt by Hazel's attack, and it's not like either have any stated upper limit or have shown any upper limit. Both of them still take damage to get power and it increases their strength, but getting hit with kinetic energy is much more common than being hit with lightning. If you want to say, well, the difference is that Nora can charge itself with dust, so it's got more utility, Yang could just punch herself to increase her power. Both have seemingly equal power outputs, but Yang's is just easier to charge. Number 7. Polarity. It's here I started to notice how little reasoning they give to why these are placed as they are. All it says is, Pyrrha has good range, and can move big gears. While those are moderately impressive, they ignore legitimately impressive things of note, like how she could throw Penny's own weapons with so much power it tore Penny apart. And that's not just because their strings were super sharp or something, it's clearly shown the wires wrap around and then crush Penny in half. That would require absurd power from Pyrrha to accomplish. A lot of the kinetic force that they were thrown with due to Pyrrha's semblance would have gone to wrapping it around, but it still had enough power after wrapping around to then crush Penny in half. I'm not arguing that polarity shouldn't be here. I think there are definitely arguments for it being above Burn and high voltage, like how most people use metal, meaning she always has a use for it against pretty much anyone, and that it is insanely strong, but where is the actual reasoning? In fact, this list doesn't often give reasons as to why these semblances are more powerful than others and should be in the top 10. Like, irregardless of the exact placement of where they are on the list, this list should be able to explain why these 10 are the most powerful, regardless of how strong they are compared to each other, but how strong they are in general. Doesn't do that. It doesn't give any sort of calculations, for instance, or any sort of feats for any of them. Like, Yang's semblance is so strong that even though she couldn't do shit to the mech, when she first fought it. With their semblance, she was able to, and she was able to output more power than any of the other characters at that point. Number 6, Kindred Link. Here's where the list bites itself. This list should have nothing to do with combat if Kindred Link is involved. Kindred Link, Raven's semblance if you didn't know, has almost zero practical use in a fight. And they don't even address its usefulness. All they say is, only Raven has been shown to be able to use this. Kindred in its name is related to family, it makes portals, and it has limited usage because you need to have a link to your target. Like what? All you've done is explained what it is, and its limitation. But unless you use something for scale in your description, it doesn't really help. For instance, if I describe the Kamehameha as a moon-destroying laser beam in Dragon Ball, you get an understanding of how powerful it is. But if I just said key laser beam but also takes a long time to charge, you'd have no clue why I would rank it any higher than just a regular key blast. This is an awful choice. Why is this here? This isn't a useful semblance, as you need a link to the person, making it highly limited. Raven herself has pretty much no use for it. The only person that she had a link to that we know of, that we know she'd want to teleport to at any point in time, is dead. And she can fly too, so if she needs to get somewhere fast, she's probably just going to do that. And yeah, if she wants to get to Yang, Taiyang, or Crow, she can do this, but why the hell would she want to? Last conversation with Yang went bad. Last time she went to Tai, she didn't say anything, and last time she met with Crow, they had a fight. Yes, I know we didn't see the interaction between Tai and Raven, but it would be deathly enraging if, for whatever reason, that end credit scene comes back as a major plot point. Why is this here? Number 5, Aura Amp. What? This has no right being in a list of most powerful, as on its own this semblance is absolutely useless. It is 100% support and that's it. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be extremely powerful because it's not. It's extremely situational. And by that I mean it has a lot of uses based on the situation, not that it's only useful in certain situations. That was probably the wrong word to use. But if you've never seen it used for more than boosting Grant's capabilities and healing Weiss, this won't make John any stronger. This won't exactly make it on any sane person's most powerful list. Most useful semblances? Maybe. Best semblances for teamwork? Without a doubt. Most powerful or most deadly or most effective in a fight? No. 4. Glyphs. Again, no arguments are made for why this is here. I'm not arguing with its placement or that it's even on this list. This semblance is extremely powerful due to its many uses and compatibility with dust, and its ability to summon its potential with raw power output is incredible, depending on what Weiss kills. For instance, if Weiss was to have killed that Leviathan, that would be incredible. But the problem with its placement is that all they say is 4 of its powers, one of which is teleportation, which we've only seen in the White trailer, and otherwise it's only used for teleporting her summons. It has many uses, like firing energy beams, causing explosions, pulling things towards it, propelling things away from it, holding things in place, so on, that they never bring up. There's little actual reasoning for why it's here. 3. Misfortune and Good Fortune. Semblances of Crow and Clover. Being placed together, fair enough, but most powerful? I think people overestimate how useful these semblances are. Crow, even with his semblance, got absolutely annihilated by Hazel, and was held back by fucking Lionheart, whose attacks were no-sold by Oscar. Oscar could tank these hits, and if you want to say, oh, Oscar's aura was boosted by Ozpin, fucking evidence. There is 0 evidence for that. There's not even a mild suggestion for that. But somehow, even though Oscar could tank these hits, Crow needs to block them. Crow's semblance almost never helps him. I think there may be 3 or 4 times you might be able to stretch as moments his semblance helped them in a fight, and one time, it even cost the fight against Tyrion. Clover, meanwhile, we've never just seen him pull off anything spectacularly impressive in general. I think there's an argument for these having the most potential, and if they get control over them, it's possible they could use these strategically. Sky's the limit at that point. But for now, no. They lack raw power. They shouldn't be on a list of the most powerful, or even the most useful, especially Misfortune, because it never helps Crow that much. And they definitely don't work well together. They just cancel each other out. 2. Hallucinations. Theoretically, in a one-on-one fight against someone who doesn't know what they're getting into beforehand, hallucinations can be devastating. In raw power, get off this list. In effectiveness, I could definitely see the use, except Emerald isn't really good with them. Yes, she used them against Coco, but she didn't need to. That was a pretty useless example. However, against RWBY, they didn't do much for her. She got in 1 attack and it didn't help. The only time she actually succeeded in taking RWBY down was when RWBY was distracted with something that was not a hallucination. And when teaming with Mercury against Yang, Yang was still holding her own even with all the fucking hallucinations. While they are useful, Emerald is an absolute moron with them, and a complete novice at utilizing them. Number 1, Overactive Imagination. Neo's Semblance, easily one of the most useful in a fight, as unlike Emerald, Neo has been able to use these well in a fight, and I can definitely see it being a contestant for number 1 in a list of most useful and most deadly, but most powerful. Fuck off. Once again, we gotta go back. The title of this article is most powerful. Seriously, this has no right here. It has no power at all. Power should be raw output, not utility. Like I said, we have a word for that. Also, nobody has matched Overactive Imagination, but that's not technically true now, is it? Neo has had 3 on-screen fights of any note, at least. She might have had one that I'm forgetting. Against Yang, where she never used it. Against RWBY, where RWBY managed to win despite the Semblance and Roman helping her. And Cinder, where clearly the maiden powers far exceeded it. So if we're talking about truly matched, then yes, it has been. If we're talking about matched via Semblance, then it's never competed with a Semblance. RWBY didn't really make use of her Semblance much. Obviously, Yang's was never even used. Frickin' Cinder didn't bother. What Semblances could theoretically match it? Let's see. Hallucinations, good luck and bad luck. Telekinesis, if used in a widespread. Moonslice, if swung horizontally. Petal Burst, if RWBY just runs the hell away from the area and goes flying straight up to avoid it. Burn, with Yang's area of effect explosion. Hazel, just standing there taking whatever comes. I can see many things matching it. I can see many things matching it, and I know I said Yang, but that's because if Yang was theoretically able to absorb enough energy and then explode with Burn, so the anger kind, not the one she uses now, old Yang, would explode with Burn, it could theoretically knock everything flying, including Neo. But what gets me are how many things were missed on this list. If this is about most powerful, where's Telekinesis? That matched up against a maiden power. Where's Moonslice, or Hype, which if you didn't know is Coco's semblance and allows her to do this to Deathstalkers that tanked Crescent Rose. Via Sun and Killer Quartet have more right than some of these semblances. Scorching Caress from Cinder, and if we're talking most utility, where's Shadow? Where are these book semblances, the ones from the book? Bertolac Celadon can turn sand into glass and manipulate it, that's a really useful one. August Caspian can amplify someone's emotions, which situationally could be useful. If someone was really angry and he amplified that and they went into a fucking rage, and he could just avoid them and they can tire themselves out, Edward Caspian can completely turn off someone's semblance. That is a massively useful power that, if used right, can change the tide of an entire fight in a moment. Tok can make herself indestructible for a short time. Where's that? Fiona Thyme can absorb things. Theoretically, if that works on people too, she could suck up anyone she fights, even Salem. Not to say it can, but it's possible. Maro, he can just freeze people in place, and Yatsuhaji's semblance is insane. So insane, in fact, that if he really wanted to, this would have been the last moment of his fight with Mercury. He could, while touching him, erase his memory. Temporarily, but still. He could temporarily erase Mercury's entire memory of ever training and fighting, and use that time to just layeth the smacketh downeth. So many options, but no. Kindred fucking Link, and Hallucinations, which Emerald has never used effectively. I know that I haven't argued particularly well for what I just brought up, but all I wanted to do was bring up other options most people would know about, not make a case for them being strongest. This list is awful not because of just what's on it, which is awful, but how vague and unclear it is. But what should I expect from CBR? Nothing. And that's what I got from this list. Nothing. I can only hope you all got something from this video though. Hope you enjoyed and liked me being a little bit annoyed with something RWBY related that's not RWBY's fault for once. I have seen worse lists, like the Monsters Stronger Than Godzilla list that had fucking Xenomorphs on it. You know, ignoring the time Godzilla took on a swarm of mini destroyers, which are way stronger than Xenomorphs, while having all the same attributes, and one... Goodbye.